expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX's board, staff, or underwriters.
Good day. You are listening to Ability Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Amelia Headly Lamont of the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. And today I am joined by a very experienced, pretty cool lady by the name of Rebekah Kubla. And she is the communications manager for the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. And she started in that capacity back in September of 2023. Good day, Rebekah.
Good day. How you doing, Amelia?
I'm doing great. I've always had an interest in journalism, communications, and I note that that's your background as well. So for our audience's edification, tell us about yourself. What's your background in media and such?
Okay, so I graduated from the University of Pittsburgh with a Bachelor's of Arts in Media and Professional Communication, and I got a Corporate and Community Relations certificate with that. It's basically like a public relations writing certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And my minor was legal studies. So I always kicked around the idea of going to law school, but I obviously have not done that. But it seems like a lot of people that are lawyers do communications track at least as a minor. So yeah, that's definitely related in that respect.
Well, what made you interested in media and communications? What piqued your interest in that field?
Okay. So I've always been able to read. I don't remember a time that I couldn't read.
Wow.
And
okay.
I've always read a lot. So I'd always get my hands on newspapers. If we went somewhere, I would grab all the brochures. And then like my parents would get mad because it was clutter. But I always wanted to read everything. And I think I got that from my mom and her dad. And so my grandfather, Alvin, he used to work at a newspaper.
Mm-hmm. Do you know the name of the newspaper?
What?
Do you remember the name of the newspaper?
No.
Okay.
It was in Dubois, is how we say it in Pennsylvania. But it's Dubois, is how we say it here. And I don't remember it. I think it was the Courier or something, the Dubois Courier. But yeah, I don't remember the name of it.
Okay. Was he a reporter for the newspaper?
He did a little bit of reporting. He did some photography. And it was a small paper, so he just did a lot of odds and ends. And so he always had newspapers, and he used to stack them up, and I'd take them to go recycle. Whenever he was, what I knew him as really was a caretaker for my grandmother.
Okay. And
he
so
always encouraged that.
Say what?
He always encouraged me to read everything I could and to study everything I could. And newspapers was one way that we would do that.
Right. And sadly, that's not as popular as it had been. You made some mention in our previous conversations about the advancing of social media versus, I guess, traditional media. What's your take on that?
So it's kind of a concern of mine. 60% of people get their news from social media now.
60%?
Yeah. And 88% of millennials get their news from Facebook.
Oof.
And a lot of people talk about that the media could be biased one way or another, which is true. But whenever you're getting your news from social media, you're getting whatever the algorithm feeds you. So if you like something, they're going to show you more of that. They're not going to show you anything that's balanced or fair in the middle. Most likely, unless you have, I don't know, and somebody that's on your friends list that has an opposite view, and then you will see it sometimes if you interact. But it's making it so that people can be more divided and not really see both sides of the story because they're getting fed what will keep them on the app. That's the whole point of the app, is to keep you on there as long as they can.
And only give you news that you want or you like or have shown a history of having an interest in, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So it's just the algorithm. Everybody's algorithm is different based on what they've liked and interacted with.
And that's what we mean by algorithm? How would you break it down in layman's terms? What do we mean by an algorithm?
That's the data that they collect about you that shows your history.
Okay.
And data is a big commodity nowadays.
And give
We
us
have
some examples of social media. What do we mean when we say social media? What does that mean?
Okay, social media is, well, some examples are Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and there's a new one called Blue Sky, which is like kind of like an answer to Twitter. The president has his own social media. Donald Trump is called Truth Social. And then there's just other social media that pops up now and then. Back in the day, we had MySpace. I think that was the first social media that I can recall. And we, the RCVI, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and we used to be on Twitter. Actually, it's now called X. But we switched over to Blue Sky.
Okay.
So if anybody's on Blue Sky, come and find us. Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. And then also YouTube is considered social media.
Oh, okay.
So whenever you're watching YouTube, unless you're searching for something, all of those suggested videos are based on things that you've watched before. So if I go and I turn on my YouTube, there's probably going to be a lot of videos about Legos and Jurassic Park because my son uses it. But whenever you turn it on, you're not going to see that. Or if I didn't let my son use it, I would probably see a lot of stuff about communications and disability rights.
Okay, so yeah, it is kind of creepy. So your computers or your telephone is programmed to give you only those subjects that you have shown in the past that you want to watch or look at.
Yeah, and then a lot of people, if you don't have, not a lot of people have cable anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, there are a lot of people that have internet, but for the people that don't, that phone is the only way that they're getting their information. And social media they're more likely to go on social media than a news app. Now, you can learn about media bias, and it's pretty simple because if you listen to a message or you see something, you can always think of what's the other side. You can tell if somebody's given more of an opinion. Sometimes it can get tricky, but I can give you an example of that from like a current headline. 1 second. So this is from allsides.com. So what they do is they'll give you a topic and then they'll give you a headline from the right, a headline from the left, and a headline from the center.
Okay.
Yeah. And they all sound a little bit different. And so this is just an example. Let me see one that they have. None of these really have too much to do with disability rights. So I'll make this brief. But so the headline roundup would be Dodge reportedly disbanded. White House officials dispute claims.
Okay, now repeat that title again, please.
Doge reportedly disbanded. White House officials dispute claims.
Okay. And that's from what side? Center? Left? Right?
That is from the center.
Okay.
That's what they got out of these 3 headlines.
Okay.
So the center headline that they have is from Reuters. Exclusive. Doge doesn't exist with 8 months left on its charter. And then the left from The Guardian, which they consider far left, most people do, is that doesn't exist. Doge reportedly quietly disbanded ahead of schedule.
Okay. And Doge is the Department of Government Efficiency. That was the department that was run temporarily by Elon Musk, correct?
Correct. So the last headline I'm going to read you from the right is the White House denies reports Doge doesn't exist anymore. Says agency has no centralized leadership. And that's from the Epoch Times, and they're more right-leaning. So you see how it's the same headline, it's the same news, but each has their own little slant to it.
Right.
So the media bias could be something as simple as not interviewing both sides or as not fact-checking. Yeah, and there's some other resources that I can name real quick that might be, if you're interested in what I'm talking about, you could look these up. There is a film that came out called Mediocrity, and it's about how politics and mass media influences politics. And that's a new one. And
Mediocrity?
then the Great
Okay. Who's in it? Maybe that's
it's a
the other thing.
documentary.
Oh, it's a documentary. Okay. Mediocrity. All right. If you
But
said
it is,
Denzel Washington, people might perk up. You know what I mean?
okay, yeah. If
Uh,
you want to learn more about the algorithm and
uh-huh.
all the data, this is a few years old, but Netflix has a documentary called The Great Hack.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then you want to get scared about all this, you can watch an old sci-fi movie from 2006 called Idiocracy.
Ooh, okay.
And it's basically everybody just relies on the internet. And so they stop thinking for themselves and
Mm-hmm.
it dumbs down society.
Wow.
But so messaging and communications 101 is that you have to have a sender and a receiver. So all messages really must be coded to the receiver for them to get it.
All right. So break that down. What does that mean in layman's terms?
Well, if you don't see my message or you don't want to listen to my message, you're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of how these biases come in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it has to be appealing for you. There has to be this, what is in there for me, you know?
Right.
People generally don't want to listen to something because it's the right thing to do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's busy. They want to know what they can get out of it.
Right. Right. So what are your challenges as a communications person for disability rights as an issue? Oh, what are some of the things that you have to ask yourself day to day to have a message that's appealing to somebody who might say, well, I'm not a part of this community. Why should I care?
That can be a challenge. Luckily, we have a really good supporting organization
Mm-hmm.
called the National Disability Rights Network.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the information that we get that I distribute is associated with them or other organizations that are disability organizations. But I guess one of the challenges is that I have to watch everything and I have to watch it from a neutral perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to try to figure out how I can create a message that is going to appeal to everybody.
Right.
So one way that we can do that is to make sure that we have a call to action that resonates with people.
Mm-hmm.
That if it's not something that benefits them, that they can relate to, that'll benefit somebody that they're close with.
Correct.
Or that can affect somebody that they're close with if it's not going to benefit it. We have a lot of awareness campaigns
Mm-hmm.
to inform people about different disability rights topics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard because our target audience is everybody.
Right. That's right.
Disability doesn't discriminate. Anybody could be in this disability demographic tomorrow,
Right.
And a lot of people don't think about that, because that's not a pleasant thing to think about.
Right.
But it's hard because you don't have one target audience, really. It's good that target audience people that have disabilities, and there's a lot of people that have disabilities. 1 in 4 people in the United States have a disability.
Right.
But they're from all walks of life.
Right. All classes, all colors, all cultures, etc. I noticed that you also mentioned plain language, and that's a very important piece in our ability to convey information, right? We don't want it to sound too academic. Tell us about that and what your experience has been in that regard. And there's been some new developments with respect to interpretation, correct?
Yes. Yes. So as time goes on, the CDC really, like 10, 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
is one of the first places that I have learned from
Mm-hmm.
about plain language.
Mm.
And as people get busier and they're getting thrown all these messages, the shorter and more succinct it is, the better it is.
Mm-hmm.
The more successful your messaging is going to be. I'll give you an example from our National Disability Rights Network.
Mm-hmm.
They have a meme out on Facebook that says, anyone can be disabled at any time, including you.
Mm-hmm.
Disability rights and ableist rhetoric should matter to everyone. And then if you click on it, you can read everything. So that's to get your attention that they wrote that meme in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So it says disability is the only minority group. Anyone can become a member of it any time. In fact, if you're lucky enough to grow old, you will experience some degree of disability. So think ahead. When it's your turn, will you want autonomy, decision-making, and your dignity protected? let's make sure disability rights matter to everyone now.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has the hashtags disability rights, ableism, and inclusion matters.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did there is they appealed to your sense of self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They brought you into it. Like,
Right.
you will get disabled at some point unless you die of a freak accident, basically, which
Right.
it's kind of morbid.
Right.
But they, brought that back into it just to make the message more personal.
Right.
And that was one that was kind of successful. I saw a lot of people share and have discussions about.
There is that self-interest component. There's no way to get around that. That's something that will, make you pay attention, which is what you want.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't always have to be so
in your
morbid,
face, but well, it's honest. It's certainly honest. I also note here in something that you had written that a judge just ruled that sign language interpreters must now be at the White House press briefings. Any more information on that?
Yeah, so this was just rolled in November 5th.
Uh-huh.
And for a while, the White House and other government agencies weren't having any sign language interpreters. And the judge just ruled that inclusion is a right and that people that need a sign language interpreter to understand what they're saying have a right to be informed.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm pretty sure is a rule anyway. I know that the website access guidance, that's a rule for it's coming out to be enforced in April. But I mean, that's a rule in the ADA. But we just had a judge rule on it too.
Okay. So, ADA meaning oh my goodness, I'm blanking
Americans
out.
with Disabilities
Thank
Act.
you. Yes. One of the things we also talked about earlier was about the role of artificial intelligence, AI, and that there's some possible problems that can arise from that. Can you bring us up to speed on that?
Okay. Problems with AI. Yeah. But we also have some good things about AI too.
Well, let's be positive, and then we'll talk about the barriers.
Okay. So there is something good that's coming out of AI. It's not all just little movies.
Mm-hmm.
There are different accommodations that have to do with AI that everybody can benefit from at some aspect, like all these different note-taking softwares. Those were originally designed for people that have trouble taking notes. It's speech to text.
Right.
So speech to text is a accommodation for people that have communication problems. Same with text to speech, closed captioning, audio descriptions, the transcript. So an
Siri, Alexa.
Yep, Siri, Alexa, all of this stuff was originally a accessibility concept. And I studied some universal design for websites and apps. And that's how the universal design starts out, as we are designing this for someone with disabilities. And every time we add a new feature, that is the test to see if it's going to work or not. Could somebody that's disabled use it? So that's a sign of good UX. And that's also, they say that people are going to do what benefits them. So you have to make it as simple as possible, just like the plain language.
Right.
But plain language is just beneficial to everybody because everybody's busy. A lot of times before there were these plain language principles, we would go to the doctor and they would tell us, you have this, you have that, but nobody would really explain what it means.
Right.
And then you're like stuck asking people because, the doctor's busy. Maybe get the right information, maybe not get the right information. I mean, I know somebody that had cancer didn't even realize that they had cancer because they were told it was a mass.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So plain language goes a long way because, especially in public health.
Right.
Because you want to make sure that everybody understands what you're trying to communicate, because communication 101 is that the sender and the receiver have a common ground and that the receiver of the communication understands what the sender's saying. But back to AI, it helps with that.
I got to say this real quick. This is really amazing or funny. I had used the word SIRI, Siri or Alexa, and my phone popped up and said, "I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong assistant." So it's Siri on my phone, but Siri took offense that I mentioned Alexa. Like, okay, this is too strange. So anyhow.
And they're always listening.
Yes, that's what's also really creepy.
If you watch The Great Hack, they'll give you a little bit of information about that too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a whole different world than it used to be.
Right.
So aside from taking your notes for you, AI can do a lot of other things. Let's see. It helps with virtual meetings.
By that you mean what? Zoom or yeah, what do we mean when we say a virtual meeting? We're not meeting face to face, right?
There's AI on Zoom now. There's AI on Microsoft, all the Microsoft products.
What are they supposed to do?
On Google.
What is AI supposed to do?
Well, like I said, they can transcribe your meeting for you and then organize the notes.
Oh, dear.
Which is good for somebody that had a traumatic brain injury or just anybody that doesn't really have the time to go over their notes. It'll have it for you right there.
Okay.
Now, there is a limitation with this is there's privacy concerns. So once the AI has heard all of my meeting, where's that going? Where's the information being stored?
Right.
You know, and us being a legal organization, that's an issue.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Not that every day we're talking about a case, but, you know, we have the rules about that. Right. So a lot of workplaces are restricting AI and only letting some people use it as a accommodation. So there's the Job Accommodation Network. You can go on there and see all the different uses of AI, or you could type in any type of disability that you have. And if there is an accommodation on there that you need, you have a right through the ADA to request that accommodation. And that's really the only time that you have to disclose your disability to an employer. So there's job screening now that's being done with AI. So one of the examples that I saw on GN was a candidate that has Tourette syndrome was concerned that their application video might be screened out by AI because they have a facial tic. So the employer allowed the candidate to have a real-time video interview with human staff instead of accepting the AI recording. Okay. And I don't really know if I would consider this AI yet, but for children that are having trouble learning how to speak, they have these things out now that are augmentative and alternative communication devices. So they're apps on a tablet that use eye tracking and different technology to help teach the child what these different words are. So it could be something as simple as a picture of a baby and they hit it and it says baby, or a picture of food and they could hit it and it says food or hungry. And the low tech of that would have been they used to use picture cards, communication books, and writing pads. But now they have apps that can do all this and apps that can even help speak for them. Like I said, if they point to the food, it can say, I am hungry. And then it helps them be able to communicate, and it makes everybody a lot less frustrated and helps their emotional and behavioral aspects of it. Because if you can't communicate what you want or what you need, it's very frustrating. So it helps with emotional expression, independence, participating in school, social connections. PBS has a television show that's a cartoon called Carl the Collector. He has autism. He's a raccoon. And in an episode, what was it, last month, they introduced another child that has autism. I don't remember what kind of animal he is. And he has one of these ACC devices.
Okay. Oh, the ACC standing for?
Augmentative and alternative communication.
Gotcha. Okay, we have a minute left, Rebekah, and what I note from communicating with you is that we still need to keep the human element first and foremost, correct? That's very important to our ability to be an effective communicator, and it's my hope that we as an organization can continue to convey that, and we're not necessarily resorting to virtual meetings. There's still much more to be done on a personal level. So our guest today was Rebekah Kubla, the communications manager for the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. Rebekah, I want to thank you for all you do, the support we get from you, and your input today. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to checking in with you again next week. Bye-bye.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.